Good afternoon. Today is the 28th day of January 2016 in our continuing series, Explorations in Savitri. And as always, we are joined by our brother Alok. Namaskar. A couple of sessions ago, Alok Bhai was speaking of vision. And I remembered that I had two quotes that I wanted to share with you. Interestingly, one is from Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, the author of The Little Prince. Many of you know The Little Prince. Most of you know. Okay. Here's what he writes. And now, here is my secret, a very simple secret. It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye. And then, Sri Aurobindo, thoughts and aphorisms. When one has the vision in the heart, everything, nature and thought and action, ideas and occupations and tastes and objects become beloved and are a source of ecstasy. Beautiful. We're on page 143, Book 2, Book of the Traveler of the Worlds, Canto 4, The Kingdoms of the Little Life.
So as we are seeing, Sri Aurobindo in one majestic sweep gives us a panoramic view of a whole world, a kingdom. Now, this kingdom is obviously not a kingdom confined to a certain space or time. This kingdom extends in various ways, in various dimensions. And the kingdom of the little life, though it has manifested the animal world, extends in humanity. Now, when many times one of the problem people have with Sri Aurobindo, at least some of the academics I have encountered, they don't like when Sri Aurobindo speaks of higher and lower. They're very averse to the idea. Modern mind believes that everything is equal. And well, there is a truth in equality. There is no doubt about it. But if evolution is a fact, then hierarchy is a fact. We may not like it, but it's there. Nature has arranged things in a hierarchical manner. And it has done it with utmost compassion because it's for the evolutionary process. You can't jump stairs and steps and you will end up with a fractured leg. So evolution out of a love and wisdom has arranged things step by step. So the first humanity that we encounter in the evolutionary uprush is an animal humanity. But the difference is that animals are beautiful because they don't have a mind, at least not a very active mind. But when the animal kind has a mind, it makes it very dangerous because with the mind comes ability to justify, with the mind comes ability to deceive, with the mind comes a certain degree of arrogance. So what we see is a description of that kind of an early human experiment. And it has its place, it had its place, and yet we will see that it still persists. In its own place, it's fine as an evolutionary ladder. But when it persists beyond its required period, then it becomes harmful and dangerous. And yet something of this lingers in all of us. Beings were there who wore a human form. So we can see, right away that Ashupati encounters beings who outwardly were like human beings. Absorbed, they lived in the passion of the scene, but knew not who they were or why they lived. So this consciousness, which only looks at surface appearances, is looking for surface contact, surface thrills, surface sights, is obviously closer to the animal world. There is no reflection. There is no deeper thought. Content to breathe, to feel, to sense, to act. Look how Sri Aurobindo uses a word which is normally regarded as a great positive. content. And he has used it in a very different way. This contentment of the animal world is not a happy contentment because it stops evolution. So discontent is actually helps the evolutionary process. But here they were beings who were content to breathe, to feel, to sense, to act. Life had for them no aim save nature's joy and the stimulus and delight of outer things. Here again we see the word delight. Identified with the spirit's outward shell, they worked for the body's wants, they craved no more. Again we see a reversal of things, craved. Now, craving is a negative word very often, craving. But here Sri Aurobindo is almost putting it in a very different way. They craved no more. One wishes that they craved for something more. So, this kind of humanity, one should never try to convert. In fact, all conversion is meaningless because true conversion is always an inner process. But Mother has specifically said that there are people who are very happy with their lives the way they are. And one should never try to convert them and try to tell them about high things, great things, because it will upset their balance.
Yes.
To start with, they will not understand and very often resist. And if perchance they say, okay, very nice, and they are drawn, they will be miserable because they will suffer in the process. So, to try to suddenly bring a much greater light and vaster light for them is not a right thing to do.
This is the danger of proselytizing.
Absolutely the danger of proselytizing.
Yes.
And in Mother and Sri Aurobindo's yoga, it has no place. In any genuine yoga, it has no place because one has to feel the call inside. And there comes an evolutionary point when nature and the wisdom of God itself will guide us. We don't have to worry about changing others or converting others. If we can convert all our members to owe allegiance to the divine, that is more than enough. So the only guy we have to convert is ourselves, which is the most difficult part. So easy to convert others. So the veiled spectator watching from their depths fixed not his inward eye upon himself, nor turned to find the author of the plot. He saw the drama only and the stage. So it's interesting that there is a whole stage of evolution when the veiled spectator, the Purusha, we need not qualify it. Sri Aurobindo has not qualified it. We can use the word psychic or we can use the word mental Purusha. It doesn't matter. Yet it is still absorbed in watching the outward. But this is the beauty of man, that as man evolves, he is capable of turning gaze within. This is one of the things that demarcates animal kind from the human kind. Human beings can turn their gaze within and reflect, know better, and try to understand something deeper. But at this point of time, though there is a early humanity with its mind, and there is obviously a mental Purusha, somebody who is watching, and yet it is absorbed with only the external. It is watching only the external scene. Sometimes when Sri Aurobindo uses these terms in a way which is cryptic, it's best not to make it too explicit, like veiled spectator.
Yeah.
So, one could have a debate and discussion. Is he talking about the mental Purusha or is he talking about the psychic being? There is no need to do that, because at a certain stage of evolution, there is such a identification that this kind of a differentiation comes as one evolves. At one place, Sri Aurobindo was asked that, does everyone has a soul? He says, yes, but sometimes it is so much veiled that even we have to take it by faith that there is a soul.
This is very important. I find that, there's no need to try to translate veiled spectator. Just accept it.
Yes, accept it. Even some places where it's little more obvious, like Madonnas, 3 Madonnas.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's all right to just keep them as Madonna of 3 Madonnas. There is no need to, you can use certain terms which are there in, Indian thought, like this Purusha, that Purusha, but it's not needed. Yeah. Or the 4, overmind godheads who are also inside. But sometimes there's a beauty in not qualifying it. And there's a reason why Sri Aurobindo has done it. For instance, Sri Aurobindo has used the word supermind. Now there was such a confusion that everybody started, equating it with Vijnanamaya Purusha. And people wrote to him, asked him, in evening talks there are references. So Sri Aurobindo says it's not good to equate these terms with ancient terms, because at different places, these terms are product of experiences. So Vijnanamaya Purusha, standing on the illumined mind, somebody sees and says, that is the Purusha, and says, that am I. There is actual reference in the Upanishad. So am I, the most auspicious form. Is very different from actually entering the supramental consciousness and experiencing it. Now you may use the same term, but they are meaning very different things from the experiential point of view. And so Sri Aurobindo discourages this tendency to compare and contrast, which the mind indulges in.
And rarely uses the word in Savitri.
Yes, rarely uses the word in Savitri, that's true.
Maybe once or twice.
Yes.
Superman,
Yeah.
Superman.
Toward the end, yes.
Towards the end only.
There was no brooding stress of deeper sense. So this is the early stage of humanity. The burden of reflection was not borne. Now look at this beauty. The burden.
Burdened.
Human beings are endowed, burdened with reflection. Therefore we also care. Therefore we evolve. Therefore we learn. Therefore we educate ourselves. Therefore we progress. It's burdensome, but this is given to man. We can't help it. It's man's dharma. But at an early stage, it's not there.
And a brooding stress.
Brooding stress, yes. Mind looked on nature with unknowing eyes, adored her boons and feared her monstrous strokes. So at that stage, even the religion is like that. So people worshipped the rain, people worshipped the lightnings, the thunder, and they feared it because, they didn't know what are the forces behind nature. And so they didn't want, like they worshipped the river because they didn't want to be flooded. Later on, this symbolism was used in a very beautiful way by the Vedic rishis, because they saw that, yes, this is a manifestation of some deeper truth. But the average humanity didn't quite get that truth. So it still indulged in something very external, because out of fear, not out of knowledge. To worship a thing, adore a thing from true vision, knowledge and knowing the symbol is very different from doing it out of fear or favor.
Yeah.
So this is an early humanity which does that. It's still there in parts of, in India we have seen now, of course, those worship of these thunder gods and rain gods is not there. But people do worship certain gods simply because they are afraid that if you don't worship, things may happen which are not right.
And there are still religions of fear.
Yeah, religions of fear. That, of course, is a very primitive. It pondered not on the magic of her laws. It thirsted not for the secret wells of truth. So here comes the beauty of science. Science is one quest of man to try to understand deeper. To that extent, it's very good because it takes away this superstitious understanding. It wants to understand what appears as magical in nature, and it advances. But this, of course, is an early humanity, not yet ready for that. But made a register of crowding facts. I, love these lines. Made a register of crowding facts and strung sensations on a vivid thread. If you see strung sensations on a vivid thread, sometimes people go and go for a picnic or something, and they'll come back and tell you how the picnic was. So they will start very meticulously, we boarded the bus and what, then this happened. And you are just wondering, it's okay, just tell us how the picnic was. So, no, wait, if you say, okay, so was it good? No, wait, I have not yet, So, and with such vividity and vividness, and you can understand that, they really, that's what has counted. So,
yes.
So it's like stringing sensations in a vivid way. And of course, also register of crowding facts, which have no sense at all. It's okay, whether you went through this way and saw this or that. I mean, unless you saw something spectacular, it was a rising sun, it was beautiful. But so register of crowding facts. It hunted and it fled and sniffed the winds, or sloth inert in sunshine and soft air. So sometimes, when you read these images, it's very interesting. I love Sri Aurobindo's writings for many reasons, but one of them is particularly Savitri is very evocative. Suddenly images, it touches the revelatory mind in us and awakens images. And usually these images are very nice. But when I had read sloth inert in sunshine, the image that came to me was like a sloth, and you feel it's great. But we don't realize animals do the same thing. Sloth inert. They are relaxing in the mud. Pigs do it and they enjoy it. So, but anyways, this line is so interesting. Look at the way Sri Aurobindo has strung the words. Sloth inert. Now, inert is, bad enough or good enough. Sloth. It's a very novel use of an adjective. We know the sloth. It was actually a creature.
And perished like the mastodon
and the sloth.
Savitri.
Yes. Sloth actually is a kind of boar, which was like this, it was heavy, not very, corpulent, and would spend a lot of time, pig is a very evolved version, inert, in the mud. So sloth inert makes it, it's not just inert, something which loves to be in the mud. It gives that sense. So sloth inert in sunshine and soft air, and it hunted and it fled and sniffed the winds. It sought the engrossing contacts of the world, but only to feed the surface sense with bliss. So again, this is the part that hooks us on to television. Just to feed, and it can become such a nasty habit, because unless you feed the surface being and the surface senses, it's as if you're missing something. It's as bad an addiction as alcohol. May not be from the biological point of view, I don't know, maybe.
A psychological point of view, I think so.
Definitely. You have to watch those news. You have to see, and after a while, there's nothing in it. You also know that the world is fine, nothing really has happened. but it's like, it needs food, the surface senses.
But I think they feed the vital.
Yeah, they feed the vital through that, yes. It takes enjoyment in...
With all the horrors that are going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rarely a good story.
Yeah.
Almost always something negative.
Yeah. And the vital pulls from it, the surface sensations are fed. So, engrossing contacts.
Yeah.
So, the vital gets engaged, engrossing contacts. Even, this part exists in human beings. So how mother got a sample of the entire humanity here. So long back, when people were in the playground, so sometimes the mother would give interview. And when she would give interview, then everybody would wait. Only when the interview was over, then there will be meditation. So what to do during this period? Human beings, restless human beings. So they started something like a news reading corner. Because there was one radio. Initially, only Pavitrada had a radio. And later on, couple of people more had a radio. One of them was Nalini Sarkar. So suddenly all these people, Amalda, many of them, they would just wait for him to come in. It was quite roly-poly, and he would huffing come inside, and everybody is gathered seriously that he's going to tell the news. So he would, bits of paper, he will scrap all the news he has heard, and then he will read out. And during that time, if anybody was, like disturbing, so others would get irritated, keep quiet, it's something so serious. Now, if you really look at it, when they asked the mother, then mother said, why? War is ended, nothing is going on, you want to hear the news, what for? But of course, she allowed many things, and then later on the radio. But this is how, the radio came for the war, and then it stayed on. And then actually the newspaper room started, and the radio room started, what now is the fruit room inside the ashram. And at one point of time, when, mother said, okay, you keep this room, but you can name it as the room of falsehood. This also, because it was so true that, right from then and there. And yet she gave a message for media in the service of truth and beauty. This is what she wanted, and eventually I'm sure, it'll be transformed. She wanted in the ashram that there should be something like what today we call as a media, something like that, and we should make our own films and these things.
Absolutely.
And she had marked a place near the lake, and she had given a message in service of truth and beauty. Outwardly it has not taken place there. I'm sure it is manifesting different places in the world. So this is how it works. To feed the surface sense with bliss. Again, Sri Aurobindo is using the word bliss, delight, etc. Not that this is the true bliss and delight, but that's the only experience that the surface consciousness can have of these things. Much distorted, totally deformed. These felt lives quiver in the outward touch. They could not feel behind the touch the soul. So behind the touch there is a soul element. See, in one half a sentence Sri Aurobindo is suddenly revealing so many truths. On one side he is simply stating that look, these beings felt only the outward touch, but they could not know the soul within. But when we reverse this, we also discover that touch can be a means of expressing a soul value, which is so true. The divine touch, the mother just, putting her hands, and those who are exalted, touch, and touch can express human feelings, compassion, kindness, care. But here they just went by the touch and could not feel what was behind. So this is so interesting that...
And this beautiful iambic pentameter.
Yes.
So beautiful. Feel the rhythm in this. They could not feel behind the touch the soul.
Yes.
See, that rhythm is so important. Sri Aurobindo speaks about it again and again.
Yes. Behind the touch the soul. To guard their form of self from nature's harm, to enjoy and to survive was all their care. Again you see the perfection of words, perfect perfection. To guard their form of self.
Yes.
The body. It's just a form of self from nature's harm. That's all. To survive. This is the early attempt. And it's unfortunate if we make it the whole meaning of life. To survive is the first impulse and need of life.
Yes.
But certainly not the last.
And it's almost a primitive hedonism.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Which is appropriate for at that stage. But when it persists, then there is a chaos. And that he will describe to us. The narrow horizon of their days was filled with things and creatures that could help and hurt. So, narrow horizon of their days. This was their thought, this their feelings, this their life, surrounded by things that could help or hurt. The world's values hung upon their little self, isolated, cramped in the vast unknown. So, if God satisfied our desires, He is good God. And if He did not, He is bad, cruel. So, world's values. Everything was centered around the little I. If somebody criticized, he's a worst person on earth. If somebody flattered, he's my good friend. Because that's how the values were hung around the little self. And one had crowded life with that. To save their small lives from surrounding death. Marvelous line. That's how they experienced nature. They didn't see God in nature. They saw death advancing and to safeguard. They made a tiny circle of defense against the siege of the huge universe. They preyed upon the world and were its prey, but never dreamed to conquer and be free. Look at the marvel of these lines. It's one thing to pray and be preyed upon, but that's not conquest. Conquest is that which sets you free and even the conquered free. This is the truest sense of the word.
Yes.
Swarat and Samrat. That's how in Sanskrit Sri Aurobindo speaks of that you cannot be a world conqueror unless you have conquered yourself. So this conqueror word in Sanskrit, the first word is Swarat, self-conqueror. Then from that it extends into Samrat. Sam is totality. So self-conquest extending to world conquest. This was the way. And the classic example is Buddha. I doubt if he moved even to any neighboring country. Perhaps not even neighboring state. I mean, those were the days, and confined to. And look, I mean, I'm speaking particularly because those days when there was hardly any means of communication. Across the world, there are people who are looking for that message. Various countries. So how did he extend this conquest? An amazing feat in its own right. So, conquering and being free, that's self-conquest. But these beings were not interested in that. Their interest was to prey, and in the bargain also you become the prey. This was part of life. Obeying the world powers, hints and firm taboos, a scanty part they drew from a rich store. There was no conscious code and no life plan. World powers hints. Don't go near this. Don't do this. Do this. So they followed. So according to that, they had certain rules which at that point of time had a sense. Like, now way back in India, and how, the difference between superstition and a logical thinking and a higher sense, the difference. So in India, perhaps still it is there in certain parts, women when they were having periods, they were denied entry into temples. They were also told that no, at this point of time, there should not be any sexual relationship. Now, this has carried on. And it's carried on to absurd sense levels that, it's a sin to do that. Now, when mother was asked by the girls here that, is it okay? She said, yes, it is okay. She said, but not the rule is not okay. But yes, they can go. What's wrong with it? She said, no, but the rules. So mother said, many of these rules are basically rules of hygiene. Nothing else. It's because those days we didn't have those highly sophisticated things. So hygiene, that don't go, it's you may get infected. But these were the hints from nature they took up, and they practiced it. The taboos, in every civilization there have been taboos, but there was no conscious thought into it, and it had its meaning. They were hints from the world power. That's all. They followed it, but when man evolves, he tries to change it into a conscious understanding of life. If yes, why? If not, why not? So that's where in this early humanity, there was no such conscious code. The patterns of thinking of a little group fixed a traditional behavior's law. My parents did it, therefore I must do it. If you ask the parents, my grandparents did it, so on and so forth. We don't know. I have heard these sentences in the community around. No, don't question. You are questioning too many things. I was almost once admonished by a sadhu who had come for a lecture, and I was 7-year-old, and I got up and asked him some nutty questions. You are asking too many questions. Don't ask such questions. And then he said that, no, we have to do it because that's how our ancestors did it. They must be knowing that there is something good. So again I questioned, how are you sure that they knew it? He said, please sit down. In fact, my mother made sure. She knew. She was very scared to take me to any such place because of this tendency to ask uncomfortable questions. But it was almost told, you have to accept it because that's how we have learnt it.
Yeah.
But it's not true. You have to understand these things from a deeper point of view. So these are patterns, traditional behavior's law, and many things mother has broken here. Many traditions.
Oh, yes.
One of the traditions which, when people ask about marriage, She said, it's a social thing, there is nothing sacred about it. What do you do about it? People regard it as something sacred. And then she said, well, if people love each other, they have a right to live together. Now, imagine those days, it must have been something very revolutionary. Living in had not yet come. And if they don't love each other, they have a right to walk apart. Yeah. Now, mother gave this message there in her writings. So then, obviously, it must have shaken many, and she must have realized. So she gave another message that you must add this one to the previous one. And then she said to be united in sensations, which is what you get here from, if you get married, you get that message. To be united in sensations is good, but not enough. To be united in thoughts and feelings is very good, but not enough. To be one in, so she goes on. And then she says, all this is very good, but not enough. And then she says, at the center of your being and at the apex of the world, there burns a fire. To be united in and around that, to walk hand in hand to the same goal, through the same path, at the same pace, is the secret of a lasting union. So she also gave that, yes, there is a possibility of that. But don't exaggerate to say that all marriages are sacred. No, they are not. But it's possible that there could be one odd relation in the world which could be sacred.
But it doesn't need a written contract.
Yes, it doesn't need a written contract. And so, but traditional behaviors, patterns, people even, I'll tell you one story, very interesting. How people found it very difficult to understand the mother's ways. So this lady told me she came with a teacher. And 20-25 years age gap. She was younger and obviously. And the teacher had asked the mother that I want to come. And she said, yes, you come. And it seems he had also mentioned that I'll come with my student. So student also came. But student had not written to the mother. It was a she and he was a he. So he had written and mother had agreed. So when he came and he was given a place to stay. So this girl also went along with him to stay. And immediately, no, you can't stay there. So I don't know, I have come with him. I have no other clue where to stay, what to stay. No, you can't stay there. You have to stay separately. So she said, are you sure? He said, yes, in ashram there is nothing like it. You can't stay. Man and woman cannot stay together. So then she said, okay, you ask the mother. If she says no, I'll take it no. If she says yes, I'll take it yes. So they asked the mother. Mother said, why? Of course she can stay. That was the end of the story. Now, if you look at from, honestly, at least in the Indian context, and I think in any context, 40 years, 50 years back, this was in late 50s. Oh. Imagine, for two people who are not married, with a huge age difference, their only relation is teacher and student, and they are of different opposite genders. And the mother simply says, yes, why not? They can stay together. And this lady, who recounted me this story herself, because she was the one, she said, mother knew exactly what is the nature of a relationship. You can't deceive her. She was not deciding anything based on tradition. But in normal life, in the ordinary life, the only way human beings can behave is by tradition. So it has its place in the ordinary circumstances.
Another instance, the stigma of the left hand.
Yes. That Manoj told me himself.
Yes.
He said that mother, once, she asked for a vase and he had a book in his hand. So the book was in the right hand. So he transferred the book in the left hand and then took the vase with the right hand and gave it to her. And mother said, why are you doing this? He said, no, mother, we are not supposed to give anything with the left hand.
Right.
So mother said, who said this? So he said, this is how the tradition goes. So mother said, no, now you give me with the left hand.
See, the left hand was dirty.
Yeah.
Considered dirty, not to give anything with it.
Similarly, Champaklalji was wearing a janev, which was given by his forefathers. And this story, has a personal relation to me because I had cut off the janev after a few days. When I was put the thread, I said, I can't follow it. So if I can't follow that, always speak the truth. I don't want to wear it. Actually, I was being very honest, but I didn't realize that. So I chopped it off and threw it away. And then, people told me your parents will be very unhappy. So I had bought one and kept with me that if ever I, take off my shirt, then I must keep it handy. But anyways, eventually they understood. But so Champak Lalji for a long time was wearing this Janeo. And mother asked him that, why are you wearing this? He said, no, he gave the same logic, tradition, parents, and, they will feel bad if I remove it. So mother said, perhaps it will make them grow. Totally different approach. If you do it, maybe they also need to think that, what's there in after all wearing a thread around you? It is a symbol. Reproduce the symbol inside. You don't have to,
Yes.
And even here, we can make it into, that tendency is there in human mind. So when I got a scooter, I instinctively put mother's symbol in front, but something in my heart was saying, is it really necessary? She's all the time around you, you feel it, then why are you doing that? And I put it. And after 2-3 days, the symbol, there was a lot of rain and the symbol went away. So now people keep asking me, why don't you put it? And I want to say, I don't need to put it. I don't want another system to start, and you have symbol in front, you have symbol behind, and sometimes, it gets torn, it's much worse. So Sri Aurobindo says I don't quote this, but this is what he writes, that in Human Cycle, a symbol is nothing if the truth that it contains is not reproduced within you. So the truth of the symbol, the mother symbol should be created here. If she is at the center and the 4 powers are invoked and the 12 qualities we embody, then only we can truly understand the truth of the symbol.
Yes.
I mean, physical symbols have their value, this is not to say that, but we should not do it in a traditional form. It should be done with a very conscious, living intent. So that's where. But there is a part in us which, understands. Ignorant of soul, save as a wraith within, tied to a mechanism of unchanging lives, and to a dull, usual sense and feelings beat, they turned in grooves of animal desire. So they use the word soul, but normally they were meaning that little vital force which animates human beings. And even now, when many people say, oh, his soul is wandering in that haunted house. Well, souls don't wander. Souls are all beautiful. Or when somebody used the word wicked soul, mother really, that Mahakali aspect. What do you mean? Who gave you the right to judge? All souls are good souls. Yeah. Nothing like a wicked soul. But then she explained, it's about the vital being, we can say. And very often we mistake the vital being for the soul. So all that they knew was, oh, that is the soul. Because it cannot think of these deeper things, that, well, soul is a portion of the divine, it goes back to the psychic world. That's too much. All that you know is there is a body and there is something else which leaves the body and sometimes goes to haunted places, sometimes comes into animal world. That's a simple thought. But to have so many gradations, so all that they knew of the soul was in this way. In walls of stone, fenced round, they worked and warred, did by a banded selfishness a small good. So nature used even that. Banded selfishness. Together they had this selfish interest, but in the bargain they also built something. Just for selfish reasons. But it did help things. I mean, if I look at our own story in the Indian mythology, of course we credit the airplane to Wright brothers. Or some people go further back and credit to Leonardo da Vinci. But the aircraft first described is actually Ravana's Pushpak Viman. If you go in all times history, some 18,000 years back, Ravana is the only fellow who owned an aircraft. And the name was Pushpak. And nobody knows whether there was one or not and how he flew. But of course there are also Viman Shastras by Bharadwaj Rishi, but that apart. That the idea itself. So maybe it's quite likely Ravana was a rich guy with all the gold at his disposal, may have employed some high-tech scientist, and the secret got buried. This is my theory, not proved. And the secret got lost with him because he may have even killed those fellows that let this secret not go out anywhere. But there was one aircraft that he owned, purely out of selfish interest. But at least the fellow pioneered the, flying age. He planted the idea in human mind. I mean, some good always happens out of the worst things. Many of the things that today we use, in the jet age, came up as an exigency of war. Even to really make planes which can fly fast and, those kind of machines, they came up because of the exigency of war. A lot of technology developed because of the exigency of war.
Yes.
So, but what is war after all? I mean, to start with, it's a selfish thing. But eventually, something good happens which flows into the world. So, or wrought a dreadful wrong and cruel pain on sentient lives and thought they did no ill. ISIS.
Yes.
Cruelty, pain. Not only no ill, I am doing something good in the name of Allah. I mean, no need to edit. That's what they say. They do all these kind of things. Cruelty and pain.
But on sentient lives.
Yes.
Yes.
But
in this context.
Yes.
At this time.
Yes. So it is so contextual. Ardent from the sack of happy, peaceful homes, and gods with slaughter, plunder, rape and fire, they made of human selves their helpless prey. A drove of captives led to lifelong woe, or torture a spectacle made an holiday, mocking or thrilled by their torn victims' pangs. Don't we see Sri Aurobindo foresaw all this?
All of it.
All
Absolutely.
of it. He could go to the essence, and that survives still. This is what ISIS is ultimately.
True.
And you can't bring reason there. It's too big a thing. So, proudly they sang their high and glorious deeds and praised their victory and their splendid force. They actually post those videos and,
Yeah.
praise themselves that, we have done this. And they are gruesome. And they are very dark, captivating power because a lot of people, get so badly influenced and brainwashed, unimaginable. Recently in India, they have been, going around, trying to figure out and arrested some. It's got such a powerful influence on the human mind, something so dark.
Especially on the youth.
On the youth. So what is this? Humanity, an animal in the instinctive herd. Pushed by life impulses, forced by common needs, each in his own kind saw his ego's glass. All served the aim and action of the pack. Those like himself, by blood or custom kin, to him were parts of his life, his adjunct selves, his personal nebulas, constituent stars, satellite companions of his solar eye.
What a line.
Look at, and the humor and the irony in it. And we have sitting at top, that big man, that my kingdom, and he's wanting the whole world to follow his way. They don't understand that to start with is practically impossible. That's how it is. So this is the kind of humanity which we know still survives, and it has become worse because now human beings have evolved. They are no more in that primitive stage. Nukes are available freely and through all kinds of market. And technology is available. Now look at, all this falling into the hands of these beings. And what a brink of destruction the world stands on.
And the warped mind.
Warped mind. With this ability to deceive.
Yes.
Last few lines. a master of his life's environment, a leader of a huddled human mass. Even some of the political leaders are like that. You see their rallies, huddled human mass. Or you see some of these film stars. In India, we have the famous Rajnikant. It evades all understanding. It's okay. He's a great actor. But look at the cult that is created around the aura, and how how humanity responds, what kind of unthinking. Okay, you appreciate an acting in a movie or you don't like it, etc. But literally like a huddled human mass going there and mad after.
Yes.
A leader of a huddled human mass, herding for safety on a dangerous earth, he gathered them round him as if minor powers to make a common front against the world. Actually, these people are very, very insecure. Many of these politicians, they are very insecure, full of fear inside. And they need people around them to feel strong. So invariably, these people end up hiring muscle men and people with a lot of money. Then they feel secure. Otherwise, they feel very insecure. And that's
but even performers feed on the vital of the group.
Yes, absolutely. Or weak and soul on an indifferent earth, as a fortress for his undefended heart, or else to heal his body's loneliness. So that's how such beings either become a leader, gathering a huddled human mass, not awakened thinking humanity, or they believe in crowd, because that gives them the sense of safety, makes them feel less lonely, makes them feel secure. So this is the kind of humanity. I think we can stop here and continue on Saturday.